could come through to Smith. It does so. He's going for goal. That's an excellent effort! That is a brilliant goal! Jamie Smith celebrates, and why not? An absolute Christmas cracker.
Welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses, and it's another special episode, Callum, being joined by former player Jamie Smith today.
Oh, look at us go. 2 in a row. Look at us flying.
I know, we're moving up the pecking order. Jamie, welcome to you, and thanks very much for taking the time out of your day to speak to us.
No, it's a pleasure. I appreciate you guys reaching out to me. I listened to the interview with Richie, and it was, you guys are doing a great job. It's really professional. It was very engaging, and just happy to chat with you guys.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your kind words, and also for responding to us. We know you're a busy guy over in America, which is where you are just now. So to take your time out and spend the time chatting to us is really appreciated.
A pleasure.
You played 102 times for Aberdeen and scored 18 goals. We'll get to your time at Aberdeen in a while, but I think we should just take it back to the beginning. You started your footballing career Celtic. How much did your time at Celtic develop you as a player, and did you learn a lot from kind of the players you spent a lot of time with at Celtic?
Yeah, listen, I grew up in Glasgow as a Celtic fan, and to get the privilege to play for the club that you support, your hometown club, it's a great honour. And then obviously my time there, I was really kind of blessed with excellent coaches. Played with good players both at the kind of youth academy and then obviously the first team. I probably come into the first team for a young player. I probably come into the first team at the worst time because it's arguably the strongest Celtic team in decades.
Yeah.
But with that there came this just wealth of experience for me, and just having the ability to train every day with like top players and be in a really high level environment. It was massive for like my career. It was a great a great foundation for me to go on and have a full career. Like I said, just to be around that environment on a daily basis and be around those players and watching them and training with them, playing against them, playing with them every single day was massive. It was really good to be a part of.
Yeah, and you said obviously you grew up as a Celtic fan. That must have meant a lot to you then, being part of the squad and being named on the bench in the UEFA Cup final, albeit the result didn't go your way, so Aberdeen still remain the team with 2 European trophies, but still a good experience for you personally.
Yeah, again, just to be around the team at that time. I mean, we had some world class players at Celtic at that time. I mean, you're talking about like Henrik Larsson, who went on to do great things at Barcelona and played for Manchester United. Mm-hmm. And there was a whole bunch of other players that were were really first rate players, and the whole season for the UEFA Cup was amazing. I think maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but I'm sure I was certainly on the fringes of the group at that point, but we certainly kind of felt there was something special in the works at that point, and obviously we to go through the whole experience with the UEFA Cup and get into the final, and maybe in typical kind of Scottish fashion, you get so close and you don't quite get there at the end, but just to experience it, just to be around the group at that time was amazing. I thought in the final we played against the top quality Porto, Jose Mourinho sides. A lot of those players went on to kind of bigger and better things. But yeah, it was wonderful to be a part of. It's something that obviously I'll never forget as a young player. And again, the fact that it was a team that I grew up supporting, it was my hometown team. It was really amazing.
And during your time at Celtic in those years, in 2003, you played twice for Scotland against Ireland and Austria. How did you find getting involved in that sort of setup? How was it for you?
It was great, yeah, just to get called up and to get the recognition. Bertie Vogts was the manager. To get the recognition at the time was wonderful. Again, you know, like I grew up a Celtic fan, and it was a team that I supported. But to play for your country, and I played for my country at youth level, pretty much at every age group, U15s and up. But to get the full recognition of a full national team call-up was amazing. Probably didn't play as much for the national team as I would have liked to, but that's I'm not complaining. I got to represent my country in some fashion, and again, the Scotland team at the time were also very good. You know, a lot of experienced players. We had a really good setup, and yeah, that was again, it was another privilege.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there, sort of having the privilege to do so. That's sort of something that, you know, every young boy growing up really wants to do, play for Scotland, play for their hometown team. You did both of those. But unfortunately, the time did come where you did leave Celtic. Did you feel it was sort of the right time for you to go?
Yeah, I think it was. I got offered a contract. It was a 2-year contract with Celtic at the time, and Martin O'Neill was the coach, and the gaffer basically said, listen, you're not going to play as much as you want to, or as much as you probably need to. But based on the last 4 years that I'd played for him, he said there's a contract on the table. But I just felt it was, you know, it was that time in my career where I had to be playing regular first team football, and it was a really tough decision because Celtic was all that I'd known since I was 12 years old, 13 years old. So it was a really big decision. It was moving on from Celtic was strange. It was difficult to kind of cope with, I guess, initially. But at the time, I just felt from my own kind of football career, it was what was required just to actually play competitive football week in, week out.
And leaving Celtic, you went to abroad. You went to Holland and spent a season with ADO Den Haag. Was that the kind of only option you had, or was there options to stay in Scotland? Was there an attraction going abroad for you personally?
It wasn't the only option. There was a couple other options down in England and also in Scotland with Aberdeen. Actually, I know that Jimmy Calderwood was interested and really interested in signing me. I think the option to go to Holland was again a big decision because it's not really orthodox for a Scottish player to leave the British Isles. Maybe a little bit more so now, but back then it wasn't really. And I think now even as a youth coach now, I kind of normally challenge the status quo when it comes to the coaching stuff. And I think at the time it's probably the decision that I made was let's do something a little bit different. It was exciting. It was going to a different country, different culture, different sort of style of football. And it was a massive challenge, different language. It was a massive challenge. So when the opportunity came up, it was one that I thought, no, I think this is going to help me. And the fact that Den Haag they're an Eredivisie club, so they've been in the top division for a long time. They're a really good club. They're certainly not one of the bigger clubs in Holland. They've got a really loyal fan base and support. So it probably was good for me at that point because I was pretty much guaranteed to play quite a lot of football,
Yeah, it's funny. I was speaking to one of my friends at work today. He always has interesting facts about former players. And funnily enough, he actually watched you playing for Den Haag. He was living in The Hague at the time. And he remembers you playing and beating Feyenoord 2-0. And he says the guys around him in the crowd just said, pass the ball to Jamie, pass the ball to Jamie. And he remembers messaging his friends back in Aberdeen saying, and it's funny, obviously you said, there's kind of some interest from Aberdeen. He said, text his mates and said, we need to get this guy signed up for Aberdeen. So he was claiming part, influence in the decision for you to come to Aberdeen. But, what was it like playing in those sort of big games in Holland?
He wasn't my agent, was he?
Who probably wishes he was.
Yeah. No, listen, at the time playing Holland was excellent. Again, first of all, it was regular first team football. It was playing week in, week out. There was obviously the challenges of adapting to a brand new team with who all spoke a different language, and a culture and a football environment that I wasn't used to. So there was a lot of challenges, but listen, we played against some excellent teams in Holland. The football there is different from Scotland. It's a lot more football based. There was a lot of young players coming through at the time. It was, I mean, the Ajax team that we played against was full of like Dutch stars, and same with PSV Eindhoven and Feyenoord. So the overall experience was, again, it was one where I was taking way up my comfort zone, playing week in, week out, which I wasn't used to. But obviously the other challenges involved were, I think it really set me up for what was to come next in my career,
Mm-hmm. How do you feel the sort of standard compared with what you'd experienced in Scotland before? Obviously you're playing every week, but was it sort of a big difference, a big step up, or much the same?
The stakes are the same, they're high.
Mm-hmm.
The goals are the same. You want to win every week. You want to win every game. The football was different. There was more of an emphasis on actually getting the ball down and playing. The coaching was different for sure. Actually, the coaching, the year I spent in Holland kind of put me in a good spot for moving to Aberdeen, because obviously he had a big background in being a coach in Holland as well. But yeah, just I think the kind of people think that Scottish football is really physical, which it is, but all football's physical, right? Even out here in the United States, it's a physical sport. There's a lot of great athletes out here, but there was a huge emphasis on getting the ball down and playing. So you didn't see a lot of just keepers weren't punting the ball a lot. It wasn't going to the full-backs and just getting smashed up front. It was different from that. It was really, there was more of a tactical emphasis on it, which was great. I kind of saw myself as being a footballer that could want the ball at my feet, wanted the ball on the ground, but again, the level in Holland is, and I think you're seeing it, or you've seen it more recently with the kind of Ajax teams that have done really well in Champions League, and Dutch football's historically always been really good, and even when they've had their kind of times, the periods when Dutch football in general's dipped a little bit, the football's always still been there. It's always been really good.
And you did sort of mention earlier, not many players sort of did that going abroad, especially from Scotland. We are sort of seeing it a bit more. Sort of Ryan Gauld ended up in Portugal, Liam Henderson playing in Italy, even Jack Hendry now playing in Belgium, and one of our own, Frank Ross, got released by Aberdeen, and now he's playing for one of Jimmy Calderwood's former clubs, Go Ahead Eagles. Is it something you'd sort of encourage more for young players from Scotland to go and experience playing a different league, different kind of coaching, different styles?
Listen, I think for me, it was a great football experience. It was great to, again, just to experience those challenges, to be taken out the comfort zone. Again, all I knew was Celtic. I would never say that, certainly not in that Celtic team, I was ever in my comfort zone, not at all. But it was great to experience. It's not for everyone, but if it's if you find yourself, if you're a young player that finds himself in a position where that would be exciting for them, I guarantee you're going to benefit from it. Because places like Holland, Belgium, football is good, and the leagues maybe aren't. The Belgian league maybe isn't the biggest league, but there's good teams there that play good football. I think you look at Europa League this year, and Rangers have played Standard Liège. They're a good team. I watched the game last week at Ibrox. They're a good team. So the football is good, and I'm kind of the opinion that you can always learn, right? You can always improve, and sometimes it's learning what not to do or learning from bad experiences, but you can always be learning from these things, And for me, it was, from a football, it was really, really beneficial at that time.
And then once you left Holland, came to Aberdeen in the 05-06 season, playing 40 games, scoring 9 goals. How did that move come about, and what influenced you in coming? Was it Jimmy Calderwood once again coming back in for you?
Yeah, it was Jimmy showing an interest again. That was certainly part of it. The other part was more personal. My son was still a baby at the time. He wasn't. He was still really young, and my wife was pregnant. So my wife had kind of moved back early because, again, we were there with two young kids, and she was pregnant, and obviously I'm traveling, I'm training every day, I'm playing games. It made sense for her to move back, so she moved back around Christmas time. So for the last part of the season, I was there on my own. So I kind of said I'm really going to kind of knuckle down, focus on my football. It was great. I'd signed a 3-year contract, but at the end of the season, I spoke to the coach at the time and just said, "Listen, my wife's back home. I need to get back home." And so the fact that Jimmy had shown an interest the year before and again was a huge kind of like component to me deciding that Aberdeen was going to be a really positive move for me and my family.
Yeah, that's definitely. It's good to hear Jimmy sort of came back in fame. We're very glad that he did. But was there sort of any options elsewhere, probably in Scotland again, you'd consider, or was Aberdeen sort of the main idea you were hoping to go back to?
Yeah, I'd spoken to my agent. There was definitely some offers. There was some other options. But like I said, it was my wife was pregnant. My kids were still very young. All of her family are in Scotland, so there was some other interest from Scotland, but Aberdeen was by far the most appealing for me. Aberdeen are a massive club in Scotland, and to get that opportunity it kind of just made sense, both professionally and personally for the family.
Yeah, that's definitely very good to hear. And sort of Jimmy Calder, we've mentioned a few times already. How was he for you? How did you find working with Jimmy?
I loved it. Jimmy's obviously a big personality guy, big character person, right? He's I'm sure you guys have seen, like, whether it be interviews that he's had or just, like he's a huge character guy, and I love working for him. It's funny, him and Jimmy, Nick and Sandy they were all like, obviously it's well documented, they're big Rangers fans, and for me to be a former Celtic player, the banter was great. It was, there was a lot of winding each other up and stuff like that. But it was I love working for Jimmy. I love working for all three, Jimmy, Nick, and Sandy. It was just he's one of all the managers that I've had. He's been one of my favourites for sure. Just purely because of who he is. He's a big people person. I think Richie mentioned this in his podcast. Jimmy was interested in people with like high character, and people that were honest and hardworking, and that's how he was. And if you showed that, you got on great with him, because he could light you up when you had to hear it, and at the same time he wasn't slow in giving you praise when it was deserved, But he was honest with you, and I loved it. I love working with the coaching staff and at that time at Aberdeen.
It's great to hear you speak so positively of Jimmy, and obviously it's a shame with his illness just now. But just out of curiosity, you're doing work at Nashville now. You're the academy director there, which we will come on to. But just with how positively you speak of Jimmy and the way he was, do you think his style, is that rubbed off on you now later on in your career, now working with youth players over in America?
Of course. So the culture out here is different, right? The kids, even just in society today, the kids are different from like when I grew up as a kid that went through the Celtic Academy. And I had amazing coaches at Celtic's Academy, Willie McStay, Danny McGrain, Kenny McDowell, Eric Black. These were like high character guys and excellent coaches. But working for Jimmy and working for basically all the managers that I've worked under, there's positives and there's negatives you can take, and as all good coaches are, we beg, steal and borrow ideas and things, and I think we draw upon our experiences, and we use that. It kind of shapes and molds you as you move forward. And obviously I'm working in youth football now, or youth soccer out here in America. But all those experiences and all all the positives that I've taken from the different managers that I've worked with. It's absolutely helped shape me and how I interact and work with the kids that I'm dealing with now.
Yeah, it's good to hear. I was when we were doing the research, I was watching on the Nashville FC website. They've got like a 15-minute clip of the round table on the youth academy page. So you were kind of hosting the call with some of the players and the general manager. So it's good to see even that sort of kind of interaction and how easily available it is for the kids over there. But back to Aberdeen, and you made your debut in the 05-06 season. 3 competitive games in, we're playing Rangers at home, and up steps Jamie Smith in the 88th minute, rifling the ball into the bottom corner. What was that like?
Yeah, it was my first goal for Aberdeen. It just so happened to be against Rangers.
Yeah, what a way to make yourself an instant hero.
Yeah, I know the history between Aberdeen and Rangers fans. It goes back a long way. But listen, if to score your first goal for a club is always a really good time. To score a goal on that occasion, and it was, we're up 2-0, Rangers come back to 2-2, and then he scored in the last couple of minutes to make it 3-2 and win the game. And again, just so happened to be against Rangers. It was great. The first thing the gaffer said when I got in the dressing room after the game was, you would have never done that against Celtic, would you? And he said it with a lot of jest, and it was a lot. Mm-hmm. It was obviously very, very kind of like, it was light-hearted the way he said it. But he made sure I knew that. Yeah, you would never have done that against Celtic, would you?
I think it's a goal that so many of us, like growing up in that era, myself included, in the weeks, months, probably even still, a goal we all dream as Aberdeen fans of scoring, a last-minute winner against Rangers. Remember even in the playground or the park trying our best to like recreate that goal. But, that season, we actually went unbeaten against Rangers, which was obviously a good achievement given our previous history against them. And you actually scored again in the other home game. My friend who'll be listening to this, Ross Nicholson, we had a long debate because I was convinced it was Fern Snoyle that got the opener. But he actually assisted. And I remember that game because it was played in horrendous snow. I don't know if you remember that one at all.
Yeah, I remember the game. It was, again, that nice weather that comes off the North Sea in the middle of winter. And it's funny because I think the 2 centre-backs for Rangers were Kyriakos, who was Greek, and Marvin Andrews, who's from Trinidad and Tobago. Not 2 places that are in the world that are kind of experience loads of weather like that. I think by half-time they both get subbed out because they were just too cold. But no, Fern Snoyle, actually, when I played my first game in the Netherlands, first game in Holland for Den Haag was, I played directly against Fern Snoyle. Okay. I actually played quite well that day. And then obviously the next season I'm at Aberdeen and we signed him on loan. And listen, that season was a great first season for me to have personally, but it was a great season for the team because the gaffer had signed a few new players, myself, Barry Nicholson, Stevie Lovell. The nucleus of the squad was already really strong. I felt was really strong at that time. And for me, just personally, it was just a great first season to come in and play for the club. And scored a few goals, a few important ones. And but it was really just, it was, again, even personally, it was quick to settle into the city. Aberdeen's a great city. It's I had a young family at the time. My youngest daughter was just born, so it's a great place to be for the family. But again, football wise, playing in Scotland, playing at a great level in Scottish football, and playing for a club that is, for me, is outside of the Old Firm, is the biggest club in Scotland. I was really, really enjoying my football at that time.
It's good to hear. Obviously, you wouldn't have been enjoying the nightlife as much as Richie was, which I think was an attraction for him coming north. But, you said, we did have a good team in 05-06. And, probably feel a bit aggrieved to have missed out on maybe like Europe, but you speak about how big Aberdeen were as a club, and one game that season that will always stick in the memory was it was an away trip to Inverness where we needed 3 points to secure top 6 football. And you kind of look at Aberdeen nowadays and you think, God, this is where we were and to where we are now. But it was Steve Lovell chipped the keeper in about the 83rd minute, I think it was, to put us 1-0 up. And the reason why I remember that game is because it's the first game I've been at where I've seen fans invade the pitch at a goal.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you remember from that day, but if you do remember, did that kind of give you the sense of just how important games are to the fans as well?
Yeah, I think the kind of the carrot, that dangling carrot of European football for a club like Aberdeen, who historically have got, they've had a lot of success in Europe, as we all know. That's always something a club like Aberdeen should be looking at every single season. It's something they should be trying to attain, is European football. I think by that point, I had a very good gauge of the Aberdeen fans, the fan base, how serious it was for the city. Don't forget, we're the only team in the city, third biggest city in Scotland, the only team in that city with a really passionate fan base. And again, when that kind of European carrot's been dangled in front of your noses, it's something that I just feel it's something that's massively important, not just for the individual player or the club, but for the city, because I think Aberdeen's just a reflection of the whole city. The club's just a reflection of the city. So it's something that a club like Aberdeen should be looking to attain every single year, because it's a club of that size.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And going into the next season, 06-07, not much cup success, but we did end up qualifying for Europe on the last day. How was that for you?
It was great. Obviously, I had quite a few injuries that season. I think I had 2 surgeries on my hernia. So my season was very much stop-start. It wasn't exactly how I would have wanted it to go. But I think I played the last game of the season against Rangers.
You did, yeah.
It was actually probably one of my best games for Aberdeen. I didn't score, but I felt as though it was one of my best games, considering that I'd been injured for a huge part of the season. And in that game, I played centre midfield, which wasn't too uncommon for me, but I hadn't played there kind of prior in my games for Aberdeen. So again, just to play in that game, to win it again against Rangers, and to play a small part in the success of that season, making Europe was huge. It was just so enjoyable. Again, like I think Richie mentioned this, but the team was a really good group of players. The locker room was great. It was great to be a part of. It was great to go to work every day. And although I missed big parts of that season through injury after the 2 surgeries that I had, playing in the last game, there was never a time when I was injured that I felt as though I wasn't part of the squad. We had a great physiotherapist, and John Sharp. Sharpie was great. He made sure that, like from a recovery standpoint, that things were getting done properly. He was very big on getting injured players out to training, just even if they weren't taking part in training, just being around it. Just even if you're just walking around the field, it was great club, great group of players to play with, great staff that we had, from the coaching staff to the medical staff. It was very. I keep repeating myself here. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, and in that game as well, you saw what it meant to the fans. Obviously, beating Rangers was a bonus as qualifying for Europe, but again, fans invaded the pitch. You speak positively about Aberdeen and the one team, one city, and what it means to the fans. What was your kind of relationship with the fans? Did you have a positive one?
For me, really positive. The fans were great to me.
Scoring against Rangers helps.
Scoring against Rangers helps. So scoring a couple against Rangers helps. The fans were always great with me. I know that, like all football fans, there's always elements of the support that can sometimes be a little bit fickle and maybe not see things realistically. But honestly, my whole experience with the fans in Aberdeen was nothing but positive. I think Aberdeen fans are honest. I think if you come in and you work really hard and you show that you care about what you do, you care about the club, and you make mistakes. Every single player does, but I think if you show the attitude that's deserving of a club like Aberdeen, and reflects what an Aberdeen player should be like, then the fans that doesn't go amiss. And I think the fans, for me, my experience was nothing but positive. Nothing but positive. There's not a bad thing I could say about the Aberdeen fans at any moment.
No, I think that's a fair point about the attitude as well.
Yep, definitely. And interesting you mentioned that was probably one of your best games of the season against Rangers on the last day. I'm sure Jimmy was quick to probably mention that again. But you said also how good that Aberdeen team was. And I'm going to spring a question on you that Richie didn't like me asking because he had to pick one. Who was sort of your favourite player to play with? Maybe not the best, but your favourite player to play with in that Aberdeen team?
Yeah, I'm going to probably express the same concern that Richie expressed. Yeah, saying thanks for throwing that question on me.
That's why we like to give you the questions in advance.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah. Listen, I could name so many players. I could go through the list. I think the players that really stood out in my time at Aberdeen, obviously, was Russell, our captain, who is the model professional for any young player. Came through the Aberdeen youth system from Aberdeen. Was a massive representative of the club on and off the field. I know the gaffer signed Sevi the year before me. Sevi was a great player, great pro again. Barry Nick, Chris Clark, Barry Nicholson, excellent footballers, really, really good footballers. Probably one player that I think maybe didn't get the credit he deserved was Michael Hart. Michael Hart was an amazing defender. I hated playing against him. When Michael was fully fit, I hated playing against him in training because he was so good. And I think, when he was fully fit, like some of his performances for Aberdeen, certainly the 06-07 season when I was maybe spending more time in the treatment room, Michael was playing most of the time. What a great defender Michael was. What a good footballer he was. And me and Michael kind of grew up playing with each other, against each other, down in Glasgow, growing up. But what a great footballer Michael was. But again, listen, I try and say to our young players, it takes more than being a good football player to be a good football player, right? And what I mean by that is it's not just about what you do. It's not always just about what you do on the field, right? A lot of it's who you are off the field. We're in the people business. We deal with people every day. That's the kind of business that we're in. But player like Michael never get the credit he deserved because he was a great footballer. He was a great football player. Listen, we had a lot of good soccer players. Sorry, footballers. Richie was great for the club. Richie was when Richie was fully fit and when he was fully engaged, I hated playing against Richie in training as well. Because he was a good 1v1 defender. He was quick, he was powerful, he was committed, he had a good left foot. Big Andy Considine, who's obviously recently great success with the national team. Another great, at the time, very young lad, but very, very, very good, very committed, very professional player. There's so many. I think if I had to choose one, though, for me, it's a choice between Russell and Michael Hart because, and it probably sounds funny coming from an attacking player like two defenders. It's probably just because I hated playing against them in training so much because they were honestly really, really good footballers and really good guys.
No, that's fair enough.
Sort of maybe not favourite player you played against, but going as a player for the away team, what was your favourite ground to play at? And sort of like going back to Celtic Park, how did you find that? And maybe going back to Ibrox as well, being an ex-Celtic player and then an Aberdeen player, how did you find that?
Yeah, listen, Celtic Park and Ibrox they're the two big boys in Scottish football. I probably can't say Celtic Park on European nights because as an Aberdeen player, when I experienced Celtic Park on a European night, it was as a Celtic player. The atmosphere at Parkhead on a European night is really special. Ibrox, obviously, with the history between Aberdeen and Rangers, Ibrox is always a great place to go and play, especially that first season when we drew both games at Ibrox.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Unbeaten yet. That was always good. But the Rangers fans are incredibly passionate, great support, huge stadium. When I played for Celtic in that the UEFA Cup run, we played the game at Anfield against Liverpool in the quarter final, and I come on for the last maybe 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes. Excellent atmosphere at Anfield. I played at Old Trafford. there's quite a few. I loved the atmosphere when we played Atletico Madrid in the UEFA Cup for the Dons. It was a great old stadium, the Vicente Calderon Stadium. The fans were excellent. Best stadium, probably Anfield. I've got to say Anfield because the Liverpool fans, I've always had a soft spot for Liverpool growing up because of the Celtic connection with Kenneth Dalglish and people like that. But yeah, I would say probably best away ground is. I was fortunate to play there on a big European night. It was probably Anfield.
Yeah, no, it's a fair answer. So you speak about European nights, and you touched there briefly the trip to Madrid. So you got to experience European nights with Aberdeen, but the 07-08 season didn't get off to the best of starts for you personally. Obviously the pre-season trip to Egypt, which I was looking through the Aberdeen Heritage site today at the way the results went. There was a few crazy games, but you and Michael Hart were involved in a car crash as well. That must have been a pretty scary experience, obviously being in a foreign country as well.
Yeah. So the first of all, we go to pre-season in Egypt in like July or whenever it is, right? First, whoever made that decision, I don't know, right? But
Jimmy Calderwood obviously wanted a good tan that year.
the weather wasn't good in Mallorca that year.
No.
They wanted to go somewhere hotter. So that was the first mistake, I think. Going to Egypt in the middle of July for pre-season. We went there. We played a couple of games. We trained. It was an experience for sure. We had a game one night, and I think we'd played a couple of games, and the gaffer had said that me and Michael weren't even going to get dressed, weren't even going to get stripped. So we had the night off. So Mick's like, "Do you want to go for we'll go to the beach and we'll go for a little drive around and see what the place is like?" And we were allocated a driver as part of the whole package to go on pre-season there. So we got the driver. We jumped in the car. We headed out to the beach. We were in Alexandria, and I don't know if you guys have ever been in Egypt, right? But the whole driving road system is an absolute shambles, right? It was like we had this driver. Honestly, it was like the wacky races, Dastardly and Mutley, right? It was mental. There's like a three-lane road, but there's like six cars wide, right? It was just a total free-for-all. Everyone driving, doing whatever they want. So we'd stopped at this place and we went for a walk. We went down the beach and kind of, as I wander about, and we come back. We met the kind of driver, and he'd parked just basically beside this road. So we jumped in the car, and again, it was like a 2 or 3 lane road, but it was like 5 or 6 cars deep, 5 or 6 cars wide. And this guy's just said, "Okay, we're ready." And we're like, "Yeah." And I'm literally just I'm in the back seat. And I'm putting my seatbelt on, and the guy pulls out. And he pulls out into absolute mayhem. And the next thing I know, there's a big bang. My head hits the windscreen or the window, and we're facing the other way. And what's like just mayhem coming towards us, all this traffic. So that wasn't a good start to it wasn't a good start to the season. I think I played the next night, or 2 nights later, I played the next game. I mean, I felt totally fine. Got a little bit of a scare, obviously, as you do when you're in a little bump. But it was nothing. It wasn't like I wouldn't describe it as a car crash. It was just a result of being in the madness of
in wacky races.
the wacky races, while spending pre-season in Egypt in the middle of July.
Yeah, I'll always remember that pre-season I can't remember if it was Kareem Touzani or not, but there's a photo and it came out in the local press of the players riding the camels, and it just kind of summed up the craziness of that trip.
But we went to the pyramids one day,
Mm-hmm.
But obviously it's like, amazing to go and see. Then we were warned that like those guys that will offer you, we can take you to the top of the Great Pyramid and all that, but it's like there's just loads of scams, right? So one of the boys, it might have been like, I don't know if it was maybe like a Chris Maguire who was like just on, a young kid on pre-season. Chris was a great young kid. Maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed, to be honest, but a really good young kid. And one of the guys said, do you want to go for a camel ride? And Chris is like, yeah. And Chris jumps on the camel and the thing stands up and the guy's like, right, give me like so many euros or whatever it was, And Chris is stuck up on top of this camel and the guy wasn't going to let him back down until he gave him the 20 euros or whatever it was. And Chris, I'm sure Chris had a few choice words for him, but it was I think the year before we went to Johannesburg, which was South Africa, which was another interesting pre-season spot.
Yeah, Richie had a few stories on that.
Well, we arrived at the airport and we pick up our bags and we walk out and there's immediately armed guards that are like escorting us to the bus. So straight away the alarm bells are ringing, like friggin' armed guards here. Hold on, what's going on? And we drive up to this compound and it was this big hotel, casino, amusement kind of compound in Johannesburg, and you drive up to the gates and there's like guys holding like AK-47s as guards and you're going, hold on a minute here, like what's going on? It was a good pre-season. It was interesting. Egypt was interesting. It was good. Probably the south of Spain would have been much better though,
Back to the 07-08 season, obviously we've touched on European nights, so you got to experience your first European night with Aberdeen in the home game against Dnipro. My memories of that game was it was quite a cagey game. Obviously we come away with a 0-0 draw. What was your initial thoughts, at full time and heading over to the Ukraine? Were you guys confident we could get the job done over there?
So in typical kind of like European, like approaching a European like kind of knockout game, right? You know that if you can deny the opponents a goal at home, there's always a chance to go away and try and sneak something. And quite honestly, that's kind of what we did. Dnipro were a massively talented team. Like, I mean, they had some excellent players. And I think maybe the home game at Pataudry, you didn't see it as much. Certainly the away game, they had really good players. Like they had some Ukrainian internationals. They went on to do play at higher levels and stuff. They were really, really good. I remember the game at Pataudry was a bit of a kind of no score board. Nothing really happened. We kind of defended our goal pretty well. They did the same. There wasn't too many chances. But going over there, again, you keep a clean sheet at home, there's always a chance that you can maybe sneak something. And honestly, that's what we did. But again, I say we managed to sneak something. It's a game of football, right? You've got to attack efficiently, you've got to defend efficiently. And that night, defensively, we were fantastic. I mean, Jamie Langfield made some saves. Michael Hart was playing. He was back to full fit. I mean, it was a great team performance. Obviously, Ricky Foster get a great goal, a great cross for Darren's header in typical Darren Mackey fashion. Just throws himself at the ball and it ends up the back of the net. And Darren was great at that. Darren was another player that was, I think, had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the Aberdeen fans. But Darren was a really good player, really good guy. Got on great with Daz. And he always did a really good job of, like, at certain times he would come up with like goals that you really needed. And I think I don't want to presume anything, but I think that maybe some of the relationships that he had with the Aberdeen fans were maybe a bit uncalled for, because Darren was a player that came through, again, from the Aberdeen area, came through the youth system, nothing but committed to the club, worked his backside off every single time he could. and maybe Daz wasn't given the kind of credit that he deserved. Is a really good patron of Aberdeen. But it was funny that when we went over to the Ukraine, to the Dnipro, we went over there a couple of days early, and so the city itself used to be like a former like Russian military city. It was right on a river, and so there was a lot of like Russian like kind of arms like factories and stuff along the river, right? And it was honestly like it was like Back to the Future. It was like I remember we were training the night before. We flew in the Thursday, or maybe the Monday or whatever it was, or we flew in the Tuesday. We were playing the Thursday, and I remember we flew in the Thursday, the Tuesday, the Wednesday morning. We went, me and a couple of guys said, "Let's go for a walk." So we got out of the hotel, we go for a walk, and it was like going back to like 1982 or something like that, right? And there was guys walking along the street with briefcases. This is like 11 in the morning. Briefcases, bottle of beer in the hand with a suit on, right? Which we were like, what's going on here? And there was like women that were like long blonde hair, but they had like perms and bright red lipstick and mini skirts and stuff. It was like something from the 80s. It was weird. And then we trained on the Wednesday night, the night before the game. And I guess there was a whole bunch of the Dnipro fans that knew we were training, so they came to they all congregated around the stadium and started burning tyres. So we were trying to train the night before the game, and there's this black smoke blown across the field, and everyone was coughing and spluttering because it was the Dnipro fans that were like, "Yeah, we're not going to make this easy for these Scottish boys." But the game itself was, again, it was probably just a reflection of the group at that time. We had a really hard-working, honest group of players that with a great team spirit. We everyone fought for each other. There was many occasions like going away to play Hearts at Tynecastle and scraping a 2-1 win against a good Hearts team and stuff. It was just another reflection of that whole kind of like the environment that the gaffer had created, the players that he had signed and brought into the club, the kind of unity that we had in the dressing room at the time. It was just another reflection of that, because the performance was scrappy, it wasn't great, but at the end of the day we went through and they didn't, and that was what was important.
Yeah, and I think what you just touched on there is actually a very good point, because it was something that kind of said to, well, we discussed with Richie that, you know, Jimmy at the time I don't think ever got the kind of credit he deserved, because, you know, you say there, you know, it was a hard-working team, and even referencing going to places at Tynecastle and grinding out results. That was what Jimmy's teams did. It wasn't pretty at the best of times, but there was always that fight in the team to go and grind something out.
Yeah, listen, I think what the gaffer did was, I think where he was really good was, if you put a good group of people together, who are prepared to like commit themselves to the team and the club and each other, who create a really good rapport and spirit in the dressing room. If you do that along with signing good footballers, right, good things can happen, right? And the Aberdeen group that we had at the time, the years that I were there, we were a good footballing team. We actually played some really good stuff at times. And yeah, I don't think the gaffer gets credit at all for what he did. You can look at the great Real Madrid teams that signed all the Galacticos, right? These are like top players in the world. But yet Barcelona, for a certain period under Guardiola, they just dominated, right? And it doesn't matter how much, like how good you are, right? If you don't have the right people, then it doesn't make a difference. And that's again, it's a trait that I've taken from my experiences, and I try and apply it to the kids I'm coaching right now. Is first and foremost, you've got to be good people, right? And when I say good people, when it comes to football, it means you've got to put the club above yourself. You've got to work harder than you think that you can even work, because again, the human body is pretty like, it's pretty sophisticated, right? And you can push yourself beyond what you think you can do. Your brain might tell you you're tired, but you can actually do more. And so what the gaffer did a great job was he got really good people who were also good footballers, and he put us all together. And then that's when it all just really starts, right? That was almost the easy part. The next part is the hardest part. It's making everyone kind of gel and come together and having a great rapport in the dressing room and having a great team spirit. And that's what the gaffer did really well. And some people forget, we were a good footballing team at Aberdeen. We played some good football at times. I don't think the gaffer got the credit for that. But
no, totally.
For me, you look at, and this is at the highest level, right? You look at the likes of there's a quote from Jurgen Klopp, and it was at the time when Arsenal were under Arsene Wenger, and they were playing really good football. And I think Klopp might have been at Dortmund at the time, and he said Arsenal are an amazing footballing team. They're like an orchestra. It's like a symphony orchestra. He said, but that's not me. I prefer heavy metal, right? And I like that quote, and what it tells me that, like, again, go back to what I said earlier. When you're in football, you're in the people business, right? Mm-hmm. You're dealing with people, and when you look at the Real Madrid teams, the Galacticos, that had all these big superstars, why did Barcelona dominate them for like 3 or 4 years? Why was that? It wasn't because on paper Real Madrid were better than Barcelona. But that's not what was important. It was the fact that you were dealing with people. And I think that's what the gaffer did with us. He got the best out of the players that he had. And I think Richie said that, there was a player at Dunfermline that was came from Arsenal. Mm-hmm. And essentially the gaffer got rid of him and brought Richie in instead, because he knew what he would get out of Richie, because Richie's an honest player, hard working, and would do what was needed to be done. And I think that's a massive, it's a huge skill. The best manager is Alex Ferguson. You look back at the great Scottish managers like a Fergie, like a Bill Shankly, Jock Stein. Those guys got the best out of the players that they had, and for me, in my experiences, the gaffer did that with us. He did an amazing job to get the best out of a really good group of talented footballers. He got the best out of us, and for that, I'm speaking a little bit passionately here, but that's honestly what I feel.
No, it's great to hear that passion and honesty, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And then sort of you moved on to, after we qualified past the Nipro into the group stages, a pretty tough group to say the least. Unfortunately, you missed sort of the first couple of games through injury. I think you maybe played in Madrid. But then it sort of became Copenhagen. And this sort of was I'm 21 now, so these sort of games were the first ones I properly remember. And and you mentioned as well, people giving sort of Mackie and maybe some other players as well hard times from that time. But I've just got a great affinity with those, so I'll always remember them. I love Darren Mackie. I don't know why. It's just from that time, that was my first sort of remembering games. And this Copenhagen one really, really, really sticks out in the memory. You were pretty special that night. Do you want to just talk us through that?
Well, here's what I want to do first, Callum. Can I go back to the Atletico Madrid game? Because there is a good spot, right? So we're playing Atletico Madrid. And I know Richie tells a story that night about the Atletico Madrid game, right? But we get there, we train the night before. I felt a little something up in my hip. It was tight the night before. But anyway, we get to the game, we get in the stadium, day of the game. And normally about an hour or so before kick-off, the team lines come in. So just before you get to warm up, the team lines come in from the opposing team, right? So Jimmy Nick gets handed the team lines and he's writing it on the board. And I can see him standing there. And he's looking at this team sheet and he's staring out this team sheet, right? And obviously we all know the quality Atletico Madrid had at that time, right? Mm-hmm. And he's staring at it for a good solid minute. And then he takes this big deep breath and starts writing the team up on the board, right? The starting lineup, right? And after he writes the goalkeeper in the back four, there's another big breath, right? And I'm looking at him, and I think it was Barry Nick or someone said, he's not even got to the midfield yet, and he's already breathing heavy, right? So we're like, oh, here we go, right? And then he starts putting up Thiago Motta, Cleber Santana, Luis Garcia, Maxi Rodriguez, and you're going, oh, for goodness sake. So the gaffer then comes in and he stares at it. He stares for about 3 minutes at the team line. Then he turns around and he's like, all right, guys. And listen, am I okay to say a small swear word here?
Yeah, of course, no worries.
Okay with that, yeah?
Yeah, no problem.
So the gaffer then turns around and gives his motivational speech, and he was brilliant at this, right? Again, the gaffer got the best out of the players that he coached, right? The gaffer turned around and went, all right, boys. Diego Forlan, he's a shitbag. Michael, speaking to Michael Hart, Michael, just go and kick him, right? And then it was like, Aguero, he's only a teenager. Just go and kick him as well. And then, I think it was Barry Nick or someone said to me, so see the midfield gaffer, just go and kick them as well. Basically the whole game plan was just go and kick them, you know. Because we're looking at this team line, it's like Luis Garcia, friggin', yeah, and then at half time they bring on like Samal, Manish and Jose Antonio Reyes, and you go, oh my goodness, what's going on here? But yeah, that was the gaffer's team talk was they're all shitbags, just go and kick them in typical Scottish fashion.
Michael obviously took it a bit too seriously, obviously giving away the penalty as well.
Yeah, well, listen. I've just said Michael was a fantastic player, great defender, but he was playing against a young Sergio Aguero, who I just think had just won like the U20 World Cup with Argentina, maybe. Mm-hmm. And we all know who Aguero is now, but it was just funny because Jimmy Nick's reaction to the team lineup was amazing. just these loads of like sighs and deep breaths, and he'd only done the goalkeeper on the back floor at that point, you know. No, it's a true story. Like I'm not making it up. It was good to see, and then the gaffer turned around telling us that Diego Forlan and Sergio Aguero were just shitbags, so just go and kick them. You know? What was your question, Cal?
Sorry, it was just I was just reminiscing and getting myself in a fluster over Copenhagen. How was it? What was that like? Just talk us through it.
I think Richie in his interview actually, I think he described it really well. For you know, you look at the great nights that Liverpool have had, make it like Gerrard scoring winning goals to get them in the Champions League. I think for us that night was, and for Aberdeen, I think that was a really good analogy and a really good reflection of what it was for us. Listen, in the grand scheme of things, Aberdeen are not Atletico Madrid. We're not Manchester United or Liverpool, right? We're not the big clubs. We've got a great history, great European history, but we're not those clubs. I think we all know it. Celtic and Rangers are not those clubs, and they know it as well. So for us to go into that game, knowing that we had to win the game, and then obviously the fashion in which we won it was, obviously for me, scoring 2 goals personally was it's the highlight of my career, for sure. And to do it at Pittodrie and to do it in front of the fans when it was, again, typical freezing cold night in December, when no one should be out in that weather. We've got a packed stadium at Pittodrie, and to do it in that fashion, and again, personally, just to score 2 goals for the club that I love playing for was a special night. It's the highlight of my career.
I think you're underselling yourself there. Sorry, Glenn.
Yeah,
2 goals, just 2 goals. Can we talk about them? They were pretty good, and you could add a third. I think you hit the bar as well at one point, possibly.
What was going through your head for that first goal? Just hit and hope, or was that? Did you spot the keeper off the line?
So there's a little bit of a backstory to it, and if like Jimmy Nick or Sandy Clark ever listen to this, which they probably won't, but if they ever do, they may not remember. But I remember my first season. I probably, aside from the Copenhagen night, the best goal I scored for Aberdeen, apart from the Copenhagen night and the goals against Rangers, probably the best goal I scored for Aberdeen was up at Inverness my first season away, and we drew 1-1, and I remember at half time in that game, Sandy Clark was like, you know, wee man, like you score goals in training, you hit them from everywhere, like just like first chance you get to have a go. And I remember the game against Inverness, like literally the first chance, I don't know, 50 odd minutes or something like that.
Yeah, I'm
just the ball.
55th.
You get the ball, I took a touch and I just hit it, and I've hit it so well. and it's like it's come off my foot so well. It's like when you play a really good golf shot. If you play golf, you hit a really good golf shot and it just comes off so clean. I hit this shot so well, and it flew in the top corner. And
they're crediting you with 30 yards.
It wasn't. It was 29. or maybe 31. But fast forward to the Copenhagen night at half time, and I think it was, I can't remember if it was Sandy or Jimmy, they said the same thing. They're like, wee man, like, just first chance, have a go, see what happens. And I know it was early in the second half, maybe, I don't know what exactly what minute, but it was early in the second half. But I remember there's a goal kick from Jamie, big Jamie Langfield, and big Lee Miller just flicks it on, or like kind of wins a header. And it was a case of me it was kind of instinctive. I didn't think about it too much. It was just I took a touch. I knew that I wasn't stepping onto it, so I couldn't generate loads of power. So I just had to get it up in the air, and it was more like a lob than anything. But I knew that if I could get it up in the air, there was a chance, and I knew that it was unpredictable. The goalkeeper, the defenders were not going to expect it. So it was literally just, I took a decent touch, it sat up perfectly, and I thought I need to get this up in the air, and I just put my foot through it. Really good connection. I knew where the goal was, and I got it up, and obviously everything after that was maybe a little bit of a blur, to be honest. But when I saw it hit the back of the net, it was a special moment. At the time, if I watch it back now, it's a good goal. I know it's a good goal. One of the best I've scored. But at the time, it wasn't about scoring a good goal. It was just putting the ball in the net. If it came off my nose, it wouldn't have made a difference, But it just so happened that it was a good strike from a way out. But there was a couple of components that I can't explain it. It's not something that you at the time you think about, except for, I remember thinking, we're talking a fraction of a second. I've got to get it up in the air, and I took a good touch. It sat up, and I just went for it.
No, it's good to hear. Like Calum said, I think you did undersell yourself a little bit, so it's good to hear the backstory.
That win that sealed us into the next round, played Bayern Munich. That's a huge tie. Look at some of the players they had. I think Glenn was saying earlier you weren't involved so much in that. I think maybe picked up a little knock, but you were on the bench at home. What was that sort of like? Sort of that atmosphere as well on that night, the 2-2 draw at Pataudry.
Yeah, and again, listen, the gaffer brought in two young kids from England, Shawnee and Josh, two exciting young players that stepped up that night. What a game for Aberdeen fans to experience. I mean, we're talking about one of the big boys in world football, right? I mean, Bayern Munich, right? German national team players, European Cup winners, all that good stuff. What an amazing experience! For me, it was disappointed that I wasn't going to be healthy, and it's funny. I picked up an injury, and I think I could probably sum my Aberdeen career up in general and saying that the good times were amazing, and the times when I was injured was really frustrating because all I wanted to do was play. I was a player. All you want to do as a player is play, right? And when you get such a good experiences like during those good times, like you want to experience that over and over again. And it wasn't to be, but it was great for the club, great for the city to host such a prestigious opponent, and then to go and represent the city and the club in the way that we did. Bayern Munich got a dodgy penalty, I think, to make it 2-2.
And a half.
Very dodgy penalty against Alan Mabry. But to not be a part of it personally was of course disappointing. And then what happened next was really disappointing because I'd worked so hard to get back from the injury, and I was feeling great. I'd done a lot of work with John Sharp, the physio, and Sharpie was the best that I've worked with. He was fantastic. On the verge of training, full training, ready to go, and something happened in my calf, and it just, like, even John was like, "What have you done?" I was like, "John, like, I've just spent like 3 weeks. You've ran me into the ground for 3 weeks, And then, like, literally a couple of days before the game, before the team were due to fly out, it just it kind of, my calf went again. I can't explain it. I don't know. But yeah, like obviously that whole year, the cup run, being involved, playing a part in it, and having the disappointment and the success and the disappointment again was it's all experience, and I think from experience you gain so much. And again, what was next in my career was then to, you know, that those experiences really helped me, you know.
And obviously you said the next experiences in your career, which was a move to the United States, which obviously you're still there just now. Was there a sense of disappointment that you weren't offered a new contract or an extension to your contract at Aberdeen?
Yeah, there was disappointment personally, because my family, like, again, we loved being at Aberdeen. My kids were settled, my wife was settled. We loved it. There was definitely disappointment. I loved playing for the club, but the reality is, at the same time, this is the industry that we're in, right? I get it. It's a results-based business. If I think maybe one of the things that I enjoy about being in the youth side of the game is that we've got the ability to be really patient with a lot of these kids, because they're just young kids and there's a lot of development that happens. And in the senior side, the professional side, it's more cutthroat. It's like if you can't do a job, then unfortunately, you know, the club need to find someone else that can. And at that time, like, again, I've got no ill will against the club. They were just doing their business. I'd been obviously had a lot of injuries. It was not ideal. For sure, disappointed. Did not want to leave, but I don't blame the club for anything. It's just that again, that's the business that we're in right now. Yeah,
and if I remember correctly from that period, Jimmy ended up leaving the club that summer as well. I think he left in the summer of 2009. And so you ended up in America. There was a deal in place to go to Toronto, if my research is correct, but that didn't work out, and you ended up at Colorado. So how did that all come about? And ending up in America. Sorry.
No, there was a few options. Again, England and it was probably like the Championship in England or the League One. And to be honest, again, I'll be really candid here and just say that at the time, like, because of the injuries, because of what happened at Aberdeen, I wasn't enjoying my football. It was just like my head wasn't maybe in a good place, and I thought I want something different, right? I just want to experience something different, and the move to Toronto came about. And I flew out there with my family. There was a contract initially on the table. Then they took it off. And again, I'm not saying they were interested and they weren't. And that's okay. That's the business we're in. Yeah. But I got a phone call from Steve Guppy, who I played with Steve at Celtic for under Martin O'Neill for 3-4 years, and we had a great relationship. And Steve was the assistant manager in Colorado, and he said, "Listen, do you want to come out?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I remember there was about a 2-week period when I was still in Aberdeen. We were living in our house, and I remember just literally getting out on the streets and working my backside off and getting really fit and doing a lot of running. And for whatever reason, the injuries that I'd had didn't pop up. So I worked really hard, flew to Colorado, and the part of the journey continued from there. Loved my time in Colorado for the most part. It was I just feel as though it was something I just had to get away from the stress and the intensity of what European football is, or British football is, or Scottish football is. And this was something new. It was exciting going to America, getting to live in a place where it doesn't piss with raining every other day, you know. and it was great. And if you guys ever get the chance to come over to the US, Denver, Colorado in general is spectacular. I mean, it's 300 days of sunshine a year. It gets cold in the winter, but it's blue skies. In the wintertime, it either snows or it's blue skies and cold, right? But in the summer, it's beautiful. And you're on the Rocky Mountains, you know, you're right there at the Rocky Mountains. It's just a great place to live, great place for the kids. So yeah, I ended up moving out to Colorado, and it's funny when it was like you talk about like a new culture and a different environment. I came out to Denver, met with Steve and Gary Smith, who was our head. He was the manager of the Rapids. He's now the manager here at Nashville soccer club. So I came out and I trained for a couple of days, and I was feeling great. And I mean, the place is like, I came out in July, and the place is like, you know, the Rocky Mountains, and it's like everything's clean, and it's here in the US, and the weather's amazing. And I remember I came out and trained for a couple of days, and the team had a game on the Saturday. So I was sitting up in like the director's box, watching the game. And it was my first experience of like a Major League Soccer, MLS game, Major League Soccer game. And just at the start of the second half, one of our, like, ball got played forward, and one of our defenders just trips up the striker near the halfway line, and it's a straight red card, right? The referee runs over, straight red card, right? He's through on goal. And the next, like, what happens next, I couldn't believe, right? Because it's just nothing I've ever experienced before, right? So, like, referee runs over, red card. The next thing, the lights in the stadium all start flashing, and the music comes on, right? And it's like, and the guy comes over the tannoy system and announces, like, ladies and gentlemen, this is a red card, ejection, right? And the fans are all cheering, and I'm going, hold on a minute. This is one of our centre defenders, like, getting a red. It's one of our players getting a red card. And the fans are all like, they're dancing to the music. I'm like, no, this is one of our players. I'm like, what have I walked into here? It was madness. But I've been here for like almost 11 and a half, almost 12 years now. And I've really come to appreciate this place. The US is a good place to be, and football in this country is getting bigger and bigger every year. But yeah, my first experience, I just signed the contract, and I was like,
what have I done?
Signed the contract Saturday afternoon, and that Saturday night, again, the fans are all celebrating. I'm used to, like, you make a mistake and your own fans, like, will boo you, right? These were fans celebrating a red card for one of their own players, and I'm like, what is going on here? But no, it's football here is good. It's interesting to be here. I'm really used to it now. Obviously, I'm down in Nashville, Tennessee, which is, again, another great place to be and great place to live. In the summer, it's too hot. In the winter, it's not as cold as Scotland, so I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, that definitely can't be bad. Sort of at Colorado, you mentioned your highlight with Aberdeen was scoring Copenhagen. I can imagine the highlight with Colorado would be winning the MLS Cup. And then this must have been pretty mental. Meeting Barack Obama, going to the White House, play football on the White House lawn. What was all that like? That must have just been absolutely surreal.
Yeah, the whole so obviously, like, back home, you look at the 05-06 season, the 06-07 season. In the US, because the format's different, is you're looking at just calendar years. So the 2010 season was, for Colorado, and obviously to be a part of it was great. You know, I think the MLS gets a really bad rap for being, like, not as good. The league's not as good as it is, and I can tell you for sure when I joined back in 2009, I was really surprised at how good it was. I'm not saying it was better than Scotland or anything like that, but it was much better than what people expect it to be. And I can tell you now, sort of 10, 12 years later, it's even better again, right? But the 2010 season was great. I started off, my third game for Colorado in 2009, I got a bad injury. I get the hamstring tendon tore off the bone, so I had to get surgery, and then I got a blood clot in my calf, and I was out for a long time. And it was like, kind of, here we go again, you know, injuries again. But I got back to fitness, and the 2010 season was really good for the club. What I can say is the league, the format, the structure is all very different from what it is back home in Europe, because obviously there's college soccer and it's a big component, and there's MLS drafts and all that. But the dressing room I was in Colorado was, again, a great bunch of guys that were incredibly hardworking. Some of the banter and the jokes and the kind of the environment wasn't quite the same as what I was used to, right? It really wasn't. It was different. But it was, what a great bunch of guys I played with, like really good bunch of lads I played with, hardworking, honest. We players from Africa, Jamaica, Japan, Central South America, American lads. It was just great. It was great to be involved in. Hugely great experience. And then I remember we played LA Galaxy probably October time, and LA were they were the best team at the time. David Beckham, Landon Donovan, Edson Buddle, all these guys, like most of the team were in the US national team. Really good team. We played them in Los Angeles, and we beat them 3-1, and that basically was guaranteed as a playoff spot. And I guess what a lot of Americans say is that the beauty of American sport is if you make the playoffs, you've always got a chance, right? And I'm obviously of the belief that, well, if you win the league, you deserve to get the credit you get, like Liverpool last year, right? 30 years without an English Premier League title, and they win it. That's what they deserve, right? But again, you're in America, and that's what the rules are. That's what the game is. That's how it's set up. So you embrace it, and for us, I wouldn't say we scraped into the playoffs, but we got into the playoffs kind of late in the game, and from there the story was just brilliant. We were massive underdogs. No one expected us to do anything, least of all get to the final, and then to go even further than that, to actually win it in this small kind of like MLS club from the Rocky Mountains, to go and win, essentially be the best team in the country was pretty special. I had great moments at Celtic. I can safely say, from a personal standpoint, the Copenhagen night at Pittodrie is the best that I've experienced for myself. But to be part of a team and to be part of a group that goes on and wins some silverware and wins a trophy when you're massive underdogs, when it's least expected, that was a special moment to be part of that Colorado group. We came back, we won the final in Toronto. We flew back to the city the next day, and we get like a whole thousands of fans turned out in downtown Denver to kind of like do a parade. And it was American. It was not what I'm used to, but it was special. It was a special moment, and I absolutely loved it. And I played in the final, and I got an assist in the final, and it was really, really, really good.
Not bad.
Did you have a conversation with Obama at all?
That's exactly the route I was going to go down. I have to ask.
Yeah, I just asked him fit like. He had no clue what I was talking about. He didn't care what I was speaking about.
I'm impressed with that even as a Glaswegian, that you can come up with fit like and all that stuff. I can only imagine if you did actually ask what he would have been like, but it's just crazy. It must have been so wild being at the White House and all that stuff. But
we like it was the 2011 season. We were playing like DC United, or I think we played Columbus, and we had to go to the White House, and it was like we were working under Obama's schedule, and
crazy.
We went to the White House, and it was like, you're getting tours of the White House, and then you're on the front lawn with all like military personnel with their wives and their kids, and you're playing some soccer with them, and then you go and meet the president, and it was surreal. Like I've got a picture of it. I can't really remember it because it was just so bizarre. But
if anyone wants to watch it, it's available on YouTube. Just type in Colorado Rapids Barack Obama, and you can get clips of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can see yourself kind of front and center behind Obama. I was watching it before doing the recording.
Yeah, I think President Obama requested that I was right behind him at that point.
It must have been the assist. He must have been watching. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So obviously now you've stopped playing. You've joined Nashville Soccer Club, and for those that don't know, you're now the academy director. Is that correct? title?
Yeah, I'm in charge of the academy program here at Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah, so Nashville are one of the newest teams in Major League Soccer. This was their first season in MLS football.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so what's it like being, obviously you teamed up with Gary Smith, who you talked about was your manager at Colorado, but what's that been like going into a new franchise, to use your American terms, and then also taking a role where you're now in charge of developing the youth of tomorrow for American football or soccer, should we say?
Yeah, let's call it football. That's good. Yeah, listen. The probably the biggest being a player to not playing anymore. I think Richie said that. Like Richie Byrne, the player, is no longer. He's dead, right? And it's very much like that, and it's not easy, and it's difficult to kind of wrap your head around. It's really not easy. It's not enjoyable. I was quite fortunate in the sense that I went from literally within a week, went from deciding I was going to retire to taking on like an academy team at an MLS academy, and I coached the U18s at the time. And so my focus had to change really quickly. But one of the first things I realised was that it's not the same job. Just because you played the game doesn't mean that, coaching the game is a completely different job. Yeah, it's still the game, it's still football, but it's so different because as a player, you're really selfish, right? And again, I'll say this candidly, as a player, everything you do is to prepare yourself for performance, right? So you sleep right, you eat right, you warm up properly before training, you cool down properly after training, you train properly, you get in the gym. Everything's about your own performance. And obviously, the bigger picture is if you perform well, then hopefully the team perform well, right? But it's about yourself. We're a selfish group of human beings when you're an athlete. But as a coach, it's different because none of it's about you and everything's about the team. Everything's about the players. So to adapt to that was pretty difficult. I had to adapt to that. But to be honest, right now, I love it. I couldn't be happier in the job that I'm in. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of stuff that I've had to learn in the kind of 7 years since I've stopped playing. But I think back to when I was at Celtic and I had these amazing coaches, guys like John Ward, who was actually connected with Aberdeen for a long time. He was my first ever coach at Celtic. What a great guy. Then to move into the youth, like the full youth team with Willie McStay, Danny McGrain. I mean, Danny McGrain's a Celtic legend, right? To work with these guys every day and play for them and train under them every day was what an experience. And so there's a great quote that I heard, and I fully believe it. And again, I'm going to kind of repeat what I said earlier about we're in the people business. We deal with people, right? People don't remember what you say, they don't remember what you do, but they always remember how you make them feel, right? And I remember my times at Celtic. There was times when you just felt great because the people that were leading you, the people that were your coaches, the games that you played, again, I couldn't tell you how many goals I scored or how many good games I played for the academy at Celtic, but I remember the times when I felt brilliant. And so what we want to do here at Nashville is, and our leadership here is amazing. Our owner, John Ingram, he's hands-on. He comes out to academy games, friendly games. The guy's amazing. Ian Eyre, our chief executive, is the same. Ian was the chief executive of Liverpool for 10 years. Vast wealth of experience and actually cares about the academy program. Same thing for my general manager, Mike Jacobs. Same thing. He came through kind of like he worked with Kansas City for a long time. Like they've got such an interest in the academy program. Very similar to Aberdeen, I would say, because Aberdeen have got a great reputation for bringing through young players. Right? We want to replicate that here, but like our main job is like we know that the majority of kids that play for Nashville Soccer Club's academy are not going to be professional players. That's just the truth. That's the reality, right? The information and history just tells you that, right? So what we want is for every single player to leave this club having a great feeling. They don't remember maybe what was said or what was done, but they remember that it was just they loved it, and that's our kind of main focus. And I look back at all my experiences, and I draw upon all those experiences, and I can safely say that we're making a lot of really good progress and try to create the same environment that I've experienced for our young players.
No, that's great, Jamie. We really appreciate you taking the time tonight, well, this afternoon for you, to spend time with us going through your career, and more specifically for a lot of those of you tuning in at Aberdeen. And I hope you've enjoyed hearing from Jamie. I know, Callum, you'll have certainly enjoyed some of those stories.
Definitely, yeah. But as I said, it was sort of like the first sort of period in my life that I sort of remember actual being at the games, and just reliving some of the memories, rejogging it. It was just lovely. Yeah, I'm very, very much enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Listen, guys, I want to say that obviously I listened to the podcast with Richie. You guys did a great job. I think it's so professional, really engaging. It's for me, it's a privilege to be able to talk to you guys and reminisce a little bit. I really don't do it often. I don't jump into podcasts or chat much about my career. I find that I'm fairly kind of quiet on that side of things. But it was really enjoyable, and you guys did a great job. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, Jamie, and just want to say thanks for taking the time out. We've messaged some of your other teammates, Chris Clark, Scott Severin, but it was really appreciated that you giving up time in your day. Obviously, the time difference as well. We know you're driving about, so you've got us on the hands-free device, and taking that time just to go through it, we do really appreciate it, obviously, and thanks for the kind feedback as well. So thanks again. Have a good Christmas when it comes, and all the best with your academy at Nashville.
Yeah, pleasure, guys. Let's stay in touch, and best wishes.
Definitely. Thanks very much, Jamie.
Well, there we have it, folks. That concludes the podcast with Jamie Smith. We hope you've all enjoyed that interview, and we also hope you have enjoyed your Christmas as well. Thank you very, very much for your support throughout the year since we began, and also on this show too. And also, why not subscribe if you're watching on YouTube? That is, like the video too. Follow us on any of the streaming platforms that you're listening into. Follow us on Twitter at @RTG_podcast. All the rest of our links will be in the description, but most importantly, enjoy the rest of the festivities.